A young autistic boy who never spoke a word was found standing in the middle of a crime scene, covered in blood that wasn't his. The police assumed he was the killer. His father, a single parent, had no way to defend him because his son couldn't explain what happened. But when a forensic psychologist discovered the boy had been drawing the same symbols for weeks before the murder, everything changed. What those drawings revealed didn't just prove his innocence. They uncovered a killer who had been hiding in plain sight all along. Before we continue with this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Oh, and don't forget to comment below where you're watching us from. We love to know that. Nathan Cross was 8 years old and had never spoken a word in his life. Born nonverbal with severe autism, he communicated only through gestures, sounds, and drawings. His father, David Cross, had learned to understand Nathan's world through patience and careful observation. David worked as a graphic designer from home so he could care for Nathan full-time. Their days followed strict routines because Nathan needed structure to feel safe. Breakfast at 7, drawing time at 8, a walk at 10, lunch at noon. Any disruption sent Nathan into distress, rocking back and forth or covering his ears. David protected that routine fiercely because it was the only way Nathan could navigate a world that constantly overwhelmed him. Nathan loved to draw. He filled sketchbook after sketchbook with images, geometric patterns, spirals, grids, and shapes that repeated endlessly. David kept every drawing, organizing them by date in labeled folders. Most of the images seemed abstract, the kind of visual processing therapists said helped autistic children make sense of their environment. But about 3 weeks before everything changed, Nathan started drawing something new. It appeared on every page, a circle with 3 lines radiating outward like a simplified sun or a strange symbol. Inside the circle was always a dot. David didn't think much of it at first. Nathan often fixated on shapes, but the symbol kept appearing, sometimes small in corners, sometimes filling entire pages. It was always the same: circle, 3 lines, 1 dot. David mentioned it during Nathan's therapy session with Dr. Amy Lawson, a behavioral specialist who had worked with Nathan for 2 years. She looked through the recent drawings and noted the repetition. "It could be a visual stim," she said, "something he finds comforting, or it could represent something he's trying to process. Has anything changed in his environment recently?" David shook his head. "Everything's the same routine, same places, nothing new." Dr. Lawson suggested they monitor it but not intervene unless Nathan showed signs of distress. David agreed and took Nathan home. That night, Nathan drew the symbol again, but this time he added something else: a stick figure standing next to the circle. The figure had no face, just a body and outstretched arms. David watched from the doorway as Nathan carefully colored the circle in red, then placed the drawing on the kitchen table and walked away. David picked it up, studying it under the light: the red circle, the faceless figure, the 3 lines. He felt a strange unease but couldn't explain why. He put the drawing in the folder with the others and tried to forget about it. 2 days later, their neighbor, Margaret Holloway, was found dead in her home. Margaret was a retired school teacher who lived alone 3 houses down from the Cross family. She was well liked in the neighborhood, known for her garden and her habit of leaving cookies on doorsteps during holidays. A postal worker discovered her body when mail piled up and no one answered the door. The police were called. The scene was horrific. Margaret had been stabbed multiple times. Blood covered the living room floor. The murder weapon, a kitchen knife, was left at the scene. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting Margaret knew her attacker or had let them in willingly. The neighborhood was shaken. Police went door to door, asking questions. When they reached the Cross house, David answered with Nathan standing silently behind him. The officer, Detective Sarah Monroe, asked routine questions. Had they seen anything unusual? Heard anything? Did they know Margaret well? David answered honestly. They knew Margaret casually. Nathan sometimes waved to her when they walked past her house. She had once given Nathan a drawing pad as a gift. No, they hadn't seen or heard anything suspicious. Detective Monroe thanked them and moved on. That same evening, David took Nathan for their usual walk. They followed their regular route, which passed Margaret's house. Yellow police tape still blocked the front door, but Nathan didn't move. He stood frozen, staring at Margaret's front door, his breathing growing rapid. David recognized the signs of an impending meltdown. He knelt down. "It's okay, Nathan. We don't have to go this way." He tried to lead Nathan back, but Nathan pulled away and started walking toward Margaret's house. David followed, confused. Nathan stopped at the edge of the property, still staring. Then he turned and walked quickly back toward their house, moving faster than usual. David hurried to keep up. When they got home, Nathan went straight to his drawing table, grabbed a red crayon, and drew the symbol again. But this time, he drew it on the wall. David gasped. Nathan had never drawn on walls before. He always used paper. "Nathan, no," David said, rushing over. But Nathan didn't stop. He drew the circle, the 3 lines, and the dot, all in thick red strokes. Then he stepped back, breathing hard, and pointed at it. David stared at his son, then at the drawing. "What are you trying to tell me?" he asked quietly. Nathan didn't answer. He just rocked back and forth, his hands flapping at his sides. The next morning, David was woken by loud knocking. He opened the door to find Detective Monroe and 2 uniformed officers. "Mr. Cross," she said, her voice formal, "we need to speak with you and your son." David's stomach dropped. "What's this about?" Monroe's expression was serious. "We received a report that Nathan was seen near Margaret Holloway's property the night of the murder. We need to ask him some questions." David's heart raced. Nathan can't answer questions. He's nonverbal, and he wasn't near her property that night. "We were home." "We have a witness who says otherwise," Monroe replied. "We need to bring Nathan in for questioning." David felt panic rising. He's 8 years old. He has severe autism. He can't be questioned like a typical child. "You need a specialist present." Monroe nodded. "We're aware. We've arranged for a forensic psychologist to be present. Please get Nathan ready." At the station, David sat beside Nathan in a small, sterile room. Nathan rocked in his chair, eyes fixed on the floor, hands covering his ears. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, a sound David knew Nathan found unbearable. Across the table sat Detective Monroe and Dr. Philip Grant, the forensic psychologist assigned to the case. Dr. Grant spoke gently. "Nathan, my name is Dr. Grant. I'm here to help. Can you look at me?" Nathan didn't respond. Dr. Grant tried a few more questions, each met with silence or increased rocking. After 20 minutes, Dr. Grant turned to Monroe. "He's not going to respond to verbal questioning. We'll need alternative methods." Detective Monroe pulled out a folder and placed several photos on the table, crime scene photos. David tried to cover Nathan's eyes, but Monroe stopped him. "We need to see his reaction." The photos showed Margaret's living room, the blood, the overturned furniture. Nathan glanced at them briefly, then looked away. No visible reaction. Monroe leaned forward. "Nathan, were you in this house?" Nathan rocked harder. Dr. Grant intervened. "Detective, this approach isn't working. He's shutting down." Monroe sighed. "Then how do we proceed?" Dr. Grant turned to David. "Does Nathan use any other forms of communication? Pictures? Symbols?" David nodded quickly. He draws. He draws constantly." Dr. Grant's eyes lit up. "Can we see his recent drawings?" David pulled out his phone and showed photos of Nathan's sketchbooks, including the repeated symbol. Dr. Grant studied them carefully. "This symbol appears frequently. Do you know what it means?" David shook his head. "I thought it was just a pattern he liked." Dr. Grant zoomed in on one drawing where the symbol was surrounded by other details. A door, a window, what looked like flowers. "This isn't random," Dr. Grant said. He's trying to communicate something specific. They brought Nathan's physical sketchbooks to the station. Doctor. Grant spread them across the table, organizing drawings by date. The symbol had first appeared 3 weeks ago, around the same time Margaret's behavior had allegedly changed according to other neighbors. One neighbor mentioned seeing a man visiting Margaret's house several times, someone they didn't recognize. Doctor. Grant pointed to a drawing dated 2 weeks before the murder. The symbol was there, but this time Nathan had added a second figure, taller, broader, standing apart from the faceless figure. Nathan, Dr. Grant said gently, can you show me who this is? Nathan didn't respond verbally, but he reached for a crayon and drew again. This time he drew the circle and line symbol, then added a house that looked like Margaret's. Next to it, he drew 2 figures, one small, one large. The large figure held something in its hand. Dr. Grant leaned closer. What is the large figure holding? Nathan drew a thin rectangle. Dr. Grant frowned. A stick? A tool? David suddenly spoke up. A knife. Dr. Grant looked at David. Why do you say that? David pointed to another drawing from weeks ago. Look at this one. Nathan drew the same rectangle shape, and next to it, he drew lines coming off it, like he was showing something sharp. Dr. Grant examined the drawing. The lines did suggest something pointed or sharp. He turned back to Nathan. Did you see someone with a knife? Nathan didn't answer, but he drew again, the symbol, the large figure, and now a door. He colored the door brown. Margaret's front door was brown. Detective Monroe leaned forward. Is he saying he saw someone go into Margaret's house with a knife? Dr. Grant studied the sequence of drawings carefully. It's possible. Autistic children, especially nonverbal ones, often retain visual memories with incredible detail. If Nathan saw something, he might be recreating it. Monroe pulled out her notebook. The witness who reported seeing Nathan near the property is Margaret's nephew, Alan Holloway. He said he saw Nathan standing on Margaret's porch the night of the murder. David's eyes widened. That's impossible. Nathan was home with me. Monroe looked skeptical. Can anyone confirm that? David faltered. No, we were alone. But Nathan doesn't leave the house without me. He wouldn't. Dr. Grant intervened. Detective, Nathan's drawings suggest he witnessed something, but not necessarily as a participant. He may have seen the actual perpetrator. Monroe crossed her arms. Or he's the perpetrator and he's drawing what he did. David stood up, angry. My son didn't kill anyone. He's 8 years old and nonverbal. How would he even... Monroe cut him off. Autistic children can have violent outbursts. It's documented. Dr. Grant shook his head firmly. Not like this. This was a sustained, brutal attack. Nathan doesn't have the physical capability or the cognitive intent for something like this. These drawings aren't confessions, they're observations. Monroe wasn't convinced. Then explain why Alan Holloway saw him at the scene. Dr. Grant paused, then asked David, does Nathan ever leave the house alone, even for a few minutes? David thought back. Sometimes he goes into the backyard, but he doesn't go past the fence. Dr. Grant turned to Monroe. Where is Margaret's house in relation to the Cross home? Monroe pulled up a map on her laptop. 3 houses down, same side of the street. Dr. Grant studied the map, then asked, what's between the properties? Monroe zoomed in. Backyards. They're connected by low fences. Dr. Grant looked at David. Could Nathan have seen something from your backyard? David's eyes widened. Our backyard faces the side of Margaret's house. If her kitchen light was on, Nathan could have seen into her window from our yard. Dr. Grant asked Nathan to draw the view from their backyard. Nathan drew their fence, trees, and then a window. Inside the window, he drew the large figure and the small circle with lines. Dr. Grant pointed at the window. Did you see this from your backyard? Nathan tapped the drawing twice, his way of indicating yes. Dr. Grant turned to Monroe. Nathan witnessed the murder from his backyard, not inside the house. The nephew, Alan Holloway, may have lied about seeing Nathan on the porch. Monroe leaned back. Why would Alan lie? Dr. Grant's expression darkened. Because Alan might be the killer, and he's framing an autistic child who can't defend himself. Monroe's eyes narrowed. That's a serious accusation. Dr. Grant pointed at Nathan's drawings. Look at the timeline. Nathan started drawing this symbol 3 weeks ago, the same time a man started visiting Margaret, according to neighbors. Alan is her nephew. He had access. Motive could be financial, inheritance, life insurance. Monroe pulled out her notes. Alan Holloway was the one who insisted we question Nathan. He claimed Nathan had been obsessed with his aunt and had behaved strangely around her. David's face turned red. Nathan waved to her a few times. That's it. Alan is lying. Dr. Grant asked Monroe, "Have you investigated Alan's alibi?" Monroe checked her file. He said he was home alone the night of the murder. No one can confirm it. Dr. Grant pressed, "And his financial situation?" Monroe made a call, spoke quietly, then hung up. Alan Holloway has significant debt, credit cards, personal loans. Margaret's will leaves everything to him. He inherits her house and savings. Dr. Grant nodded. Nathan's drawings show a large figure with something sharp entering Margaret's house. The symbol he keeps drawing might be how Nathan visually represents Alan. The 3 lines could be Alan's distinct features, maybe a hat, glasses, something Nathan noticed. David suddenly remembered. Alan always wears a baseball cap with 3 stripes on it. I've seen him wearing it when he visited Margaret. Dr. Grant asked Nathan to draw the large figure again, focusing on the head. Nathan drew a circle, then added 3 short lines on top, not radiating out like the symbol, but sitting on top like a pattern on a cap. Dr. Grant showed it to Monroe. That's not a sun. That's a hat with 3 stripes. Monroe stared at the drawing, then stood up. I'm bringing Alan Holloway in for questioning. Alan was arrested that evening. When confronted with Nathan's drawings and the forensic timeline, he initially denied everything. But when police searched his home, they found Margaret's jewelry hidden in his garage and traces of her blood on shoes he'd tried to clean. A kitchen knife matching the murder weapon was missing from his own set. Under pressure, Alan confessed. He admitted to visiting Margaret repeatedly to ask for money. When she refused and threatened to cut him out of her will, he snapped. He killed her, then noticed Nathan standing in the backyard staring through the window. Panicked, Alan decided to frame Nathan, knowing the boy couldn't speak to defend himself. He told police he'd seen Nathan on the porch, hoping they'd arrest the child instead. Nathan was cleared of all suspicion. David took him home, holding him close. That night, Nathan drew one final picture. The house, the window, and the large figure behind bars. The symbol was gone. Dr. Grant visited a few days later. He explained to David that Nathan's visual memory had captured details even he didn't consciously understand, but his brain had processed them into symbols and patterns. The repeated drawing was Nathan's way of trying to communicate what he'd witnessed, even though he had no words to explain it. David looked at his son with a new kind of awe. Nathan had saved himself not with words, but with the language he'd always used. Drawings. The truth didn't need a voice, it just needed someone willing to listen. The case made headlines. Autistic boy's drawings solve murder. Nathan never spoke about it, never drew the symbol again. But he continued filling sketchbooks with patterns and shapes, each one a window into the way his brilliant, silent mind understood the world around him.